Welcome. We're exploring how to apply project management principles to your research paper writing. Your research paper, Effective Project Planning on Performance of Construction Projects, is essentially a project in itself. Let's learn to manage it that way. Research projects can feel overwhelming, especially with tight deadlines and complex requirements. But what if you managed your research like a professional project manager? Breaking it down into clear phases, tasks, and milestones will make it manageable. Phase 1, spanning January 27th to February 10th, is all about planning and preparation, laying the necessary foundation. Start by defining your objectives, breaking them into smaller goals, and finalizing your core research questions. Next, build a complete project plan with milestones. Identify resources like databases, software, and secure any necessary ethical approvals. Phase 2, from February 11th to February 29th, is the research and literature review. Conduct a thorough literature review to build your conceptual base, organize your findings for easy access, and establish context. Use this phase to draft your introduction and background. You'll establish a theoretical framework and refine the scope and research questions based on existing literature. Phase 3, from March 1st to March 20th, focuses on data collection and analysis, where your evidence comes in. Finalize your data collection instruments, then proceed to collect data through surveys, interviews, or other methods relevant to your research. Clean and organize your collected data. Next, analyze patterns, test hypotheses, and visualize your findings clearly with charts and tables. Phase 4, spanning March 21st to April 10th, is dedicated to writing and drafting, transforming your research into a complete thesis. Write your methodology, results, and discussion chapters, ensuring smooth transitions between each section of your paper. Connect your findings back to established theories and global practices, then draft your conclusions, including actionable recommendations. The final phase, from April 11th to April 20th, is editing, review, and submission, the crucial polishing stage. Edit your entire paper for clarity, rigorously check all citations, and format the document strictly according to your institution's guidelines. Incorporate feedback from your advisor and peers, finalize any appendices, and submit your polished document ahead of the deadline with confidence. Adopting a project management approach will help you plan, execute, and deliver a high-quality research paper. Breaking down tasks into subtasks keeps you focused, helps you proactively manage risks, and ensures that no critical element is overlooked. Treat your research like a project, and you will finish with confidence and clarity. Good luck with your paper.
This particular research paper will form the basis of how you lay structure, of how you work through a construction project or any other. Okay, so let's dive into it. So, for this, the ultimate goal for this project is actually preparation, submission, and acceptance of this research paper. So, to achieve this, I have laid out a structured approach and it's actually broken down methodically, okay, to ensure that I have deliverables on time, I meet the quality standards, and that the objectives are fully addressed. So I've arranged this in phases, and with that, I have actually cut the risk of delays, insufficiencies, and scope creeps. So the overall goal is actually to have a clear focus. Okay, so let's start with the planning and preparation phase. And this will happen between January 27th to February 10th. So this is my roadmap. I have broken these phases into 5 parts. And my end goal is that by April 20th, I am done with this research paper. Some of the updates that I'm gonna give you is that we did the concept phase and it was actually successful. Actually, I'm going to lay out how it went in the next recording. I'll show you how we worked it out and some of the recommendations that my professors recommended that I work on it to improve on the paper. So the planning and preparation phase will actually form the cornerstone of this research project, and it will ensure that we have a solid roadmap. Okay, So this solid roadmap will actually guide us in terms of defining our scope, the methodology, the timeline, and the resources that are required for this particular project planning. So, with that, we need the resources, we need the methodology, we need to define the scope. Okay? So, the planning and preparation phase is going to give us those. Now, we also know that we have risks here that we need to mitigate. Some of the risk is insufficiencies, scope creeps, and delays. So, because we have identified this risk and we want to make sure that we optimize our resource. And for our resource, in this case, I have my supervisor who is working together with me. Actually, there are two. Okay. So we want to utilize this resource that we have. So make sure that you plan around that. Plan around that so that you know when exactly will you be able to reach out to your project supervisor or guide in terms of that. We also need to set clear priorities for the entire research. So, what are my priorities? My priorities here are that by April 20th, I should be done. And my priority here is to have quality work. And then I want to avoid rushing through the paper and I want to avoid delays. So those are my priorities. So the goal here is to have clarity of objectives. So I want my objectives to be clearly defined. I want the hypothesis to ensure that the study is staying focused and providing actionable insight. So if you're working on your this is a template to just to give you an overview on working on your project. So first of all, you need clear planning and preparation. Okay? So we have seen that planning will help you accommodate potential setbacks. Okay? Planning will help you accommodate timelines and will ensure that deliverables are on time. Okay? Then planning will ensure you're aligned, your resource are aligned. So what are the tools that you require? What are the reference material? What is the technology that you require? What is the human resource? Do you have a supervisor? Do you have someone that will need to do the research work? Okay. How are your methodologies? Are they organized? Uh-huh. And how will be the execution? Will it be smooth? Which frameworks will you be using? Which phases are you going to utilize in this particular uh, project? Okay, so planning and preparation gives you the groundwork. Okay, it gives you the groundwork to understand who are your stakeholders, what are your risks, and how aligned to your objectives, or how clear are you bringing out this project. Then we roll out to phase two, and which is research and literature review. So this phase two will happen between 11th February to 29th of February. So this phase is going to help us build. We want to build the intellectual framework and the context of this research project. So we'll use existing literature from the research. And existing literature in this case, may I clarify that it will be within 5 years? I just want to use the most recent research work. And this is basically because of the most trends that are happening in the construction industry, the technologies, the extensive inventions and trends that are happening. So I want it to be limited within the 5 years, to be specifically between 2021 and 2026, and they're about 2025. Okay, so when we have this extensive literature, what we able to achieve here is that we'll see where we have the gap. Okay, do we have a gap in knowledge? Okay, do we have theories? Do we have trends that are happening? Okay, also then we're gonna have a foundation laid out, and a foundation that will help us understand in comprehensive context our area of study and how it will be guiding our methodology, our theoretical framework, relevance and originality. That is in terms of this existing research. What are the focus areas and how does it contribute to the body of knowledge? Now, because this project is actually focused on the uh, effect of performance of housing projects, and in my case it's focused on the local setting that I'm in. I wanted to have a global perspective, so in that case I will look at contextual framework of my construction literature and how the impact has been on a global scale. Okay, then I'm going to have a focus. Now, I'm going to have a focus refinement where I look into the emerging themes and how they alter the research questions or then narrow the scope. Okay, so this phase will actually enable us have clear, actionable insights and position our project for a strong academic contribution. Okay, so then we transition to phase three. And by phase three, that is data collection and analysis. This is a critical stage because it forms the grounding, yeah, the housing of our project. And because data governs the relevance and the accuracy of our findings. Okay, so if we have strong data, then that means that our findings will be sort of data now becomes the house of this project. So we need to have the right collection techniques, we need to have the right analysis tests, and we need to align this to the hypothesis and the insights that we have brought out of this research project. So some of the contribution that I'll be looking into here will be empirical evidence. Okay, we'll ensure that our data is grounded in real world observations. And we don't want, this is very important because we don't want to speculate and don't want this to appear as our our imaginations or something we thought about. We want it to be grounded in real world observation. Then we want to ensure that we are applying risk management techniques in that we are ensuring the integrity of our data is up to date. And this will help us as research experts not to be in the trap of misinformation. Okay, because we don't want our research project to be a catalyst of misinformation. That is what we don't want. Then we are going to incorporate tools and techniques that will enable us to analyze our data efficiently. So, early enough in the project, we are going to expose ourselves to analytical tools such as SPSS, Python, and Vivo, and so forth and so forth. And this help us to have credible and insightful results. So another thing that we're gonna focus on is decision points. Okay, by decision points, we want us to have data that allows us to reevaluate. Okay, to reevaluate our hypothesis and refocus the study to stronger results. So this particular part becomes the catalyst of ensuring that our deadlines are met and we are maintaining the critical factor in our project success. Then we come to phase four. Phase 4 now is the action part where we'll be doing the writing and drafting of our paper. And it's an important phase because it transforms what we have found out in our research into a coherent and well crafted narrative. So, writing will serve as an integration of earlier phases in a communication mechanism. It is a way of communicating to the academic professors and academia atmosphere and audience, and our emphasis here is on logic and clarity, right? So here is where we apply our integration techniques, and here we look at data and conceptual frameworks synthesized to provide clarity to our readers. Okay, then because we are communicating, we need to be focused. So we'll incorporate focused presentations, and by that we are focusing on results, we are focusing on discussion, we are focusing on methodology, and we are focusing on theoretical implication. Okay, so by that we will have structure in a way we facilitate readability. Now, beyond just writing and drafting, there is need for uh, quality control. So, by quality control, we want to ensure that we have consistency in our formatting. What formatting techniques are we using? Okay, we want to ensure that we are drawn our research results to actionable insights for practitioners, right? Now, let's get to tasks and substance. Now, remember that we had arranged our work in phases, and the first phase was planning and preparation, the second phase was research and literature review, the third phase was data collection and analysis, the fourth phase was writing and drafting, and the final phase was actually reviewing the data. And now, so we have broken down this phase just for clarity, and then ensuring that we manage our time effectively. So, as you can see, phase one will be having phases like developing our research plan. So, here we just outline the research milestone and deliverables. Okay, then we develop the research questions and hypotheses. And preferably, we'll use a Gantt chart or timeline to stay organized in this particular case. Then we're gonna identify the and procure resources, and we'll use the necessary reference materials. So we'll need them all together. We look at the government policies, the frameworks that we need. Then we dive into the methodology preparation, where we define what research methodologies are we gonna use. Are we going to use quantitative? Are we going to use qualitative? Are we going to use mixed methods? Okay. Basically, you're going to prepare our data for collection tools such as interview guides. Are you going to use surveys? Are you going to use questionnaires? And then we need approval. Like, we can't just go on doing our projects like it's just something that we are doing. We need approvals from the relevant bodies, and we need to ensure that we are doing our work is ethically accepted, and we need to be actually be approved for interviews and surveys. Then that's when we dive into the research and literature review. As we said before, this is we're going to use scholarly articles. We need to have a standard. We need to have a quality measure. We are going to use government resources and past dissertations. But the aim here is that we need to be very organized. And how will we organize our references? We're going to use tools like Zotero, Mendeley, or even EndNote. So basically, once we are done, we're going to summarize our findings, identify the gaps, and how look into how our research paper will address the issues that we have identified. Then we need to write the background of the chapters. So we need the background study, and then we're going to have the theoretical and conceptual frameworks where we just are going to discuss and integrate frameworks like agile methodologies, SDGs, and align these frameworks with our research objective. Then we transition to phase three, where we get to data collection and analysis. And here, the goal is actually to look at data collection techniques that we are going to use. Are we going to use case studies? Are you going to conduct interviews? Are we going to use focus groups just to bring out our data in a very organized way? Then we are going to look at how we are going to analyze our data. Now, when we analyze our data, we need tools. We need tools that will enable us to collect our quantitative and qualitative data. For example, if I'm using SPSS, that will enable me to collect my quantitative data. And if I'm using NVivo, that will enable me to collect my qualitative data just for analysis. Okay. Now we're going to organize our data into themes. Organizing our data into themes is critical because that will enable us, because remember, we have our hypothesis and we have our objectives. So if we are organizing our data into themes, it will be easier for us to visualize through results such as graphs, charts, and diagrams. Okay. Now, this will also help us to refine our research direction. Okay. And by that, I mean we have to adjust the focus area if necessary, if needed, and we have to develop insights that will guide the drafting of our research paper. Now, then, this brings us to the most important part of it, where we say this is about communication. Research cannot be complete without communication. So, phase four, we're going to writing and drafting our research paper, and this will happen somewhere between March. And by that, we need to actually have a chapter drafting draft methodology. Okay, and we are going to describe our research design. What design did we use for our research? We're going to describe processes that we used, okay? And then we are going to write results and present the core findings, integrate diagrams and narratives, all just to then develop a discussion around the chapter, analyze our findings, then link them to the literature and address research questions. So writing here is actually communication, and I want us to look it in the form of uh, first of all, we have started writing the paper. So, which design are we going to use? Okay, which research design did we incorporate? Now, what processes did we use to design the research design? Then, what are our core findings? What did we find out? And in terms of explaining how we found out, how can we visually express them in terms of diagrams, in terms of narratives? Then, how can we develop a discussion around it? Based on what we found out, how can we develop a discussion around it? Okay. Then, how do we link them back to our research questions? How do we link them back to our hypothesis that we actually found out? Then, now that we have that, how can we integrate its implication? What do we recommend for housing projects planning based on the results? So when we link these findings then to global trends and the context where we are working our project, what do we say about that? Then with that, we can now finalize our draft structure by having, and this will enable us have a logical flow. You have a logical flow in terms of your thesis guideline. So finally, we're going to do the editing and reviewing, and this will be in April thereabout. That is the third week of April. And here is where we learn correct proofreading and revising for grammar. We're going to cross check our citations, bibliography, and formatting techniques. And basically, what we are doing here is comprehensive editing. And once you're done, we are going to work hand in hand with our collaborators so that we can go through over and over again and finally submit the paper for our research paper for all that. So the goal here is to leverage technology. Technology is critical for us because we need to use tools for referencing, we need to use tools for data analysis, and we can incorporate project management software just to help us understand and track our progress. So some of the important tools I'm going to use in this process will be Trello and Asana. Then basically we what we are going to do is we are focusing on the quality of our content. And by quality of our content, it means setting priority. And priority here will be in communicating our ideas clearly. And by communicating our ideas clearly, that means we'll avoid jargon. We are going to avoid jargon, and we are going to ensure that we have relevancy in our literature, our objectives and our hypotheses are aligned, and we are keeping track of important guidelines. So, why does this matter? It matters because when you're integrating the recommendation into our research strategy, we first of all have a streamlined workflow, and we're also producing a research paper that has impact. It is well structured and has the academic rigor. So all in all, we need a very strong conclusion. We need to have a reflection on the broader implications, how what we have found that contribute to the field of project management beyond housing projects. Possibly, we are going to look at application in industries such like IT infrastructure, artificial intelligence, and consider future research. For example, we're going to suggest the gaps and how can be addressed in subsequent studies for continuity. Then remember, research is not interesting if does not involve a peer review. So we're going to have a peer focus rating, and by here we have a compelling abstract early enough to capture the essence of our research, but then refine it later as needed. Then you're going to have an executive summary just to give the practical relevance. And this just provide conciseness in our insights from the research findings in summary aimed to industry practitioners and also integrating this recommendation into our research. So by this streamlined workflow, in our paper, in our research paper, we're gonna have great impact, we're gonna have a good structure, and we're gonna have an academic